I'm really looking forward to this presentation today. Let me talk a little bit. My instructions for today were to talk about, from a perspective, broadband perspective, from a person living in rural America. Now, I'm from Iowa, and I don't know if Neil mentioned that or not. Iowa is one of those flyover states. If you come from D.C. and go to California, you fly over Iowa. Most travelers see Iowa from the 10,000-foot perspective. But I'm on the ground in Iowa, and broadband communication probably looks very different on the ground than it does from the 10,000-foot perspective. The reason I make this observation is that most of my life, as Neil mentioned, I spent developing policy from the 10,000-foot perspective. And I'm always amazed when I get home to see how the regulation was implemented. It can look very different than was anticipated when we did the regulation. Many times I've said to myself, is that what we really did? As I said, I'm from Iowa, and you can see from here, Benton County is in red. It's a rural state. I live in the eastern part of Iowa, halfway between two of the larger cities, Cedar Rapids and Waterloo. The population of my county is 26,000. The population of our nearest town is 200. It used to be 500 and is shrinking drastically, like many of our rural towns. And the town where we shop and socialize is a little over 5,000. As I said, I live in Benton County, and as you can see on the slide, it's from eastern Iowa. My service for broadband is from the Keystone Telephone Cooperative. I live 12 miles from the shopping center, but I'm in fair shape when it comes to internet and having access to broadband services through my local co-op. My cost for broadband is $70 per month. The service is from 5 megabytes per second download and 1 megabyte per second upload. There's no limit for usage. The download's fine for most of my applications, reading emails, etc. But I just discovered that I wanted to use the cloud. I'm a photographer and in my retirement, and I wanted to back up my hard drive so all of my pictures were saved. Discovered that it was going to take 3.5 months to upload the information, and it timed out frequently. Obviously, using the cloud was not an option. Let me talk a little bit about the co-op company. They've done a pretty good job. They buried all their cable 20 years ago, so we have few outages. Now for the good news. I will be getting fiber to the home next summer, and my speed will increase. Now, they're not real sure, but they think 20 to 25 megabytes per second. I find that amazing, as I live 18 miles from the telephone company, and I'm the last one on the line. I have no idea how the cost of $70 fits into the range of cost, but it seems reasonable for unlimited usage. The other day I was reading the paper. It was about Mediacom starting to charge for usage. The article pointed out Mediacom's, and this is what they said, always faster internet media monthly data charge is going to be changing, and they're going to charge for usage. The lowest option for usage is for service under 14 gig per month. I'm sure you already know that 14 gig is about 15 movies, which is not much if you're streaming video. I'm lucky that I have no limit on usage. There are a number of local co-ops in Iowa, and you can see from this map, it's probably a little hard to read, but it does outline that we do have a number of local co-op telephone. They serve the customers very well, since the customers are the owners. The co-ops do not have to return dividends to the shareholders. They put their profits back into infrastructure. As I was getting ready for this presentation, like everybody else, I did a lot of research. One of the things I discovered Iowa did back about 20 years ago, the state of Iowa was experimenting ways to connect rural residents with a wired world. They installed fiber optic cable to every county, connecting all of the primary schools, community colleges, and hospitals. Now, some of the local internets were trying to figure out a way to get connected. Our local courthouse, which is in Vinton, installed a microwave dish so they could have access to high-speed internet. Unfortunately, this method was not cheap and is not an option for most. The courthouse I just mentioned is in Vinton, and it's the town where I shop and socialize. The residents are served by Mediacom for cable. CenturyLink is the provider for telephone internet services, and with a partnership with DirecTV can also offer TV services. As a side note, CenturyLink is the largest telephone company in Iowa. But as far as we know, there is no current plans to bring cable to the home in this service area. A couple of the reasons obviously are low density in population, and it's a high-cost area to serve. It's not practical or profitable area to serve. I'm sure it's not a surprise to many of you in the audience. CenturyLink is a for-profit company that needs to be profitable and return dividends to their shareholders. Now, there's nothing wrong with returning dividends to shareholders, but it doesn't really work very well in rural Iowa or in rural parts of America. The company is not inclined to upgrade and continues to use old telephone lines that are still functional and will probably be functional for the next 15 to 20 years. So what problem does lack of communication cause? One of the differences is that Vinton doesn't get high-speed internet, and without access, it's at a great disadvantage in attracting new residences and new businesses. And Vinton's leadership just started looking and became very concerned about economic development and potential prospects wanting high-speed internet. To give you an example, about 2 months ago, a telemarketing company, came to Vinton and wanted to see what services we had to offer, and they decided that they really liked Vinton and were very interested in locating their company there, but discovered that they could not get high-speed internet. Losing the possibility of a 20-job company is a great loss to a town the size of Vinton. It's expensive because it's expensive to bring. The other thing that some of the retail businesses mentioned is that they have to pay a lot more for advertising. I thought this was sort of interesting because they can't pick their coverage area, so they have to pick a big area in Iowa, and they can't target markets in Iowa, so it's very expensive for them to advertise for the customers they want, and so many of them don't use the internet for that. Vinton also has several residents that work from home and just want someone to give them better service. There's a couple of options. One is that we can talk to the current company, the current provider, and pressure them for upgrades. The other thing that we can do in Iowa is to have an option to establish rural municipal utilities to provide phone, cable, and internet services. In the past, Vinton has had 2 local referendums, and unfortunately, both of them were defeated because the current franchisee said that they would definitely improve and upgrade the services. After the referendum was defeated, they did not upgrade the services. There are, however, 70 other communities in Iowa that have approved local municipal utilities and working to get better service. So if Vinton does pass a local municipal utility, does that solve the problem for the rural residents around Vinton? And unfortunately, the answer is no. The residents are left out in the cold. If Vinton passes the referendum, those that were served by the local or the telephone company still have the same provider that did not provide good service, and now with fewer customers even has less incentive to improve their service. At this point, there does not appear to be a good solution for the rural residents. I hope after we listen to all the rest of the presentation, some of the answers will be seen from the 10,000-foot perspective that we can apply in our local area.